Hi there. You're watching Reddit Confessions. And this story starts with 6 words I'll never forget. Whatever you do, don't turn around. That's what a bartender whispered to me when I stepped into Fallow and Birch last Tuesday night. I'd just come in from the rain. My clothes were soaked. My shoes squeaked with every step. And all I wanted was to hand my wife her stupid scarf. She'd left it at home, texted me in a panic mid-shift, saying it was urgent because it was her late mother's. Even though she's never mentioned that scarf before in her life. I should have known then. The bartender didn't smile. He just leaned in, wiping a glass he clearly didn't care about, and said it again, lower this time. Don't turn around. So naturally, I did. And that's where this whole thing starts to fall apart. Because I turned and saw her, Raina, laughing like she was on some teenage dream date. Her back was arched, one hand on her wine glass, the other tracing the shoulder of a man with surfer hair and a face like a shampoo commercial. His fingers brushed her knee like they'd done it 100 times before. She was wearing red. That dress I never liked because it wasn't really her. Guess what? I was right. It wasn't. It belonged to whoever she was when I wasn't looking. They didn't see me. Not yet. And I didn't storm over like in the movies. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a drink or punch a wall or even cry. No. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the only thing I had left that made me feel like her husband. My wedding ring. I held it tight until it hurt, until I remembered every stupid anniversary gift I saved for. Every time I held her when she cried over nothing. Every text I sent that she left unread for 5 hours. Then I walked. Not to her. To him. I stopped at his side of the table, leaned forward so calm it scared me, and said, "Sorry to interrupt. Can you pass this to her?" I dropped the ring in his hand and walked back out into the rain. No scene. No closure. Just cold. She called 4-6 times that night. I haven't answered once. But I'm about to tell you everything. Every lie. Every twist. Every sick little secret that came next. And trust me, this is only the beginning. The next morning, I didn't check my phone. I left it on the floor beside the motel bed like it didn't exist. The missed calls, the texts, the voicemails, I didn't want to hear any of it. Not because I was being dramatic, but because I knew exactly what she'd say. It's not what it looked like. You misunderstood. Can we please talk? I'd heard those words in movies, read them on forums, seen them printed on the backs of broken men. And I used to think, well, I'd never fall for that. But when you've loved someone for over a decade, truly believed in them, your brain doesn't want to let go. Plays tricks. It tells you maybe you were wrong. Maybe there's a chance she had a good reason to be wrapped around someone else in a bar booth while wearing the perfume she only used on anniversaries. I didn't go to work. I sat in that motel room with a plastic cup of orange juice and the sound of my upstairs neighbor stomping around like a linebacker. The TV was playing some cooking show, but I wasn't watching. I just kept replaying the moment. The ring, her face, the way her jaw twitched when she realized I had seen everything. The way the guy just looked at me like I was the interruption to his evening, not the husband of the woman he was stroking under the table. By noon, I cracked. I picked up my phone and opened the call log. 17 missed calls from Raina Ring. 3 voicemails. 12 texts. I didn't read them all, but the last one said, "Please, Emery, just come home. We need to talk." So I did what every emotionally confused husband does when he doesn't know what else to do. I drove home. Not because I forgave her. Not because I wanted to scream. But because I needed to see her. To look her in the eye and figure out if I just imagined it all. Maybe I'd catch her in another lie. Maybe she'd confess. Maybe I'd walk into another scene that destroyed me all over again. Honestly, I didn't know what I was hoping for. When I stepped into the house, she was sitting on the couch in one of my old college sweatshirts. Hair tied up, no makeup, holding a mug she never drank from. She looked like someone trying to look pitiful. Like she had spent the morning rehearsing what remorse was supposed to look like. "Emery?" She said my name like it was a prayer and an apology rolled into one. I didn't respond. I sat in the chair across from her, dropped my keys on the coffee table, and waited. She started with a sigh. A long one. Then the story began. It was nothing. Just an old friend. It got carried away. I didn't plan it. I was going to tell you. I didn't interrupt. I wanted to see how far she'd go. She said his name was Bryce. I'd never heard of him. She claimed they dated in high school, reconnected by accident, when he messaged her about a fundraising event. She didn't mean to meet up with him, but then one thing led to another, and they just talked. That's how she phrased it. Talked. She swore there was no kiss, no touching, nothing intimate. So I asked her, calmly, then why did he have his hand on your thigh? Her mouth opened, then shut. And for the first time, I saw something genuine in her face. Not regret. Not fear. Annoyance. That's when I knew. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't some drunken misstep. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry for getting caught. She stood up, walked to the kitchen, and started pouring coffee like we were having a casual morning chat. Like we were going to laugh about this someday. And that's when she said the line that made everything inside me break a little. Can we just put this behind us? I made a dumb choice, but it doesn't change what we have. What we have. You don't get to say that when your husband walks into a bar and sees you beaming at someone else like you're newly in love. You don't get to minimize betrayal because it's inconvenient to your image of yourself as a good wife. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I stood up, walked to the front door, and said, "You're very good at lying, Raina. I just never knew you practiced." Then I walked out. Again. This time I didn't forget my ring, because I didn't wear it anymore. The next morning I woke up on my brother's couch with a stiff neck and a stomach full of nothing. I hadn't eaten since that gas station sandwich 2 days ago, but food was the last thing on my mind. I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan, thinking about all the things I should have said but didn't. I replayed every word Raina said in that kitchen, every lie she packaged in softness, every half-truth she whispered like she was the one who had been hurt. My brother, Lyle, is younger than me by 4 years but always acted older. He's divorced. Twice. And when I showed up at his place with a bag of clothes and no explanation, he didn't ask any questions. He just unlocked the door, nodded once and said, "You can have the couch. Beer's in the fridge." That's how he loves people, quietly, without pressure. Around noon, I finally checked my phone again. 12 new messages. 3 more voicemails. And then something new, an email. That was weird. We rarely emailed each other. We're not that kind of couple. But I opened it anyway. Subject line, "Please read. It's everything." It was long. Too long. Raina must have spent the whole night writing it. I started reading, expecting some kind of confession, something raw and sincere. But what I got instead felt like a resume of emotional manipulation. She wrote about how she felt lost lately, how she hadn't felt seen in months. She brought up how I forgot to compliment her hair when she dyed it in March, how I wasn't as spontaneous as I used to be. She talked about needing to feel alive, and how Bryce had reminded her of a version of herself she missed. The word connection appeared 5 times. She even thanked me, for being so calm when I found out, as if my silence was a sign of maturity, not devastation. But the worst part, the part that actually made me laugh out loud in the most broken way possible, came near the end. "I never stopped loving you, Emery. That's what makes this so complicated." No, Raina. What makes this complicated is that you looked me in the eye for years and promised things you were never planning to keep. What makes this complicated is that I would have forgiven one mistake, but you gave me an entire performance. I didn't reply to her email. Not yet. I couldn't trust myself to respond without exploding. Instead, I opened my laptop and started digging. If Bryce had been a high school boyfriend, he had to be somewhere online, right? I searched his name. Took a few tries to find the right spelling. Turns out, it's Bryce Ollerby. And just like that, his LinkedIn popped up. Tech consultant. Lives in our city. Recently separated. Of course. I clicked on his profile picture. It was him. The same guy from the bar. Same smug face. Same perfect hair. I scrolled down and saw something that made my stomach clench, his volunteer work. Apparently, Bryce led relationship empowerment workshops, on weekends at some yoga studio downtown. You can't make this stuff up. But then something strange happened. I clicked on the studio's website, just out of morbid curiosity. I wanted to see what kind of crowd attended this kind of thing. That's when I saw it, a photo gallery. Images from their last retreat. And right there, for rows down, was Raina, standing beside Bryce, smiling, wearing the red dress, not from last night, but from 3 weekends ago. That's when I realized. The bar wasn't the beginning. It was the end. They'd been seeing each other for weeks, maybe longer, and I, idiot Emery, was too wrapped up in being a supportive husband to see it. Too focused on fixing the wobbly kitchen cabinet and remembering her almond milk to notice that she was building a whole second life behind my back. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a timeline of betrayal. And suddenly, the scarf she forgot at home felt less like a mistake and more like a trap. I didn't confront her. Not right away. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. I stared at that picture from the yoga retreat for an hour, my mouse hovering over the forward button like sending it to her inbox would somehow unravel the lies. But something in me held back. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was shame. Maybe I wasn't ready to watch her twist that truth too, like she twisted everything else. So I closed my laptop, shoved it off my lap, and sat there in Lyle's tiny guest room surrounded by boxes of old tools and a dusty treadmill that hadn't moved since 2016. I didn't sleep that night, not even a second. My brain kept doing this thing where it looped old memories, her birthday 2 years ago when I surprised her with that painting class she mentioned once in passing. The road trip to New Mexico where we got stuck at that gas station and she danced in the rain while I pumped fuel. All these little perfect moments I thought meant something. And now every single one of them felt poisoned. The next morning I did something weak. I called her. I told myself I was doing it to keep the peace, to stay civilized, maybe even to set up a time to get my stuff. But really, I think I wanted to hear her voice. I wanted her to say something, anything, that would explain all of this in a way that didn't shatter what little hope I had left in people. She picked up on the first ring. She was crying, not sobbing, but that soft, shaky kind of crying women are really good at when they need you to believe they're vulnerable. "Emery," she whispered, like we were in a hospital waiting room instead of 2 people in different emotional universes. "Thank you for calling. I didn't think you would." I said nothing. She asked if we could meet. Said she just wanted to talk like adults. I agreed and we set a time, 7 p.m. at the diner near our old apartment, the one where we used to go for milkshakes on Thursdays when money was tight. It was ironic, really, meeting to discuss betrayal over a booth soaked in nostalgia. When I got there, she was already sitting at our usual spot, sipping water with lemon and wearing a sweatshirt that used to be mine. She'd done her makeup but tried to make it look like she hadn't. Her eyes were puffy. Her mascara was waterproof. The moment I slid into the booth across from her, she reached for my hand. I pulled it back. She flinched, then started talking. And here's where things took a turn I didn't expect. She didn't deny it. She didn't dance around it. Instead, she looked me right in the eye and said, "Yes, I've been seeing Bryce, but it wasn't supposed to happen like this." I blinked. That phrase again. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. As if cheating had a proper format and she just messed up the timing. She went on to tell me how unseen she felt for months. How I shut down emotionally after that audit at work. How I stopped noticing the little things. How I stopped chasing her. She listed all the ways I failed her. Every missed compliment. Every night I fell asleep early. Every weekend I didn't plan a surprise getaway. She twisted the blade with a smile. I felt like I was being graded on a test I didn't know I was taking. And then she said something that finally broke the numbness in my chest. "I needed you to fight for me, Emery, and you didn't." I nearly laughed. Fight? For what? For someone who gave herself away behind my back and then sat here pointing out my flaws like a therapist with a vendetta? I told her about the photo, the retreat, the red dress. And do you know what she said? She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She leaned back, crossed her arms, and muttered, "I guess you finally figured it out." Just like that. No tears. No explanation. Just acceptance, like she'd been waiting for me to catch up. At that moment, I realized something far worse than betrayal had happened to me. I had been emotionally outmaneuvered. She had rewritten the story so convincingly that I almost believed it was my fault. That I had somehow driven her into another man's arms with my silence and stability. And the sickest part? I was sitting there listening to it. I left the diner without finishing my drink. I left her sitting in the booth, pretending to be the wounded one. And as I walked to my car, I made a quiet vow to myself. She may have burned the house we built, but I wasn't going to let her convince me I lit the match. I didn't drive straight back to Lyle's after the diner. Couldn't. I just sat in my car, parked in front of a closed laundromat with the engine running, watching a blinking neon open sign flash against empty windows. My mind wouldn't stop spinning. Her words echoed in the silence like tiny bombs. I needed you to fight for me. You stopped chasing me. You finally figured it out. As if I'd been absent in my own marriage. As if I hadn't spent years being exactly the kind of man she claimed to want. I thought about the moments I stayed up late waiting for her to come home, thinking maybe she just lost track of time with friends. I thought about every time I told myself don't be paranoid when she smiled a little too long at her phone. I thought about how she would giggle at texts and say, "It's just Sarah." Even though Sarah hadn't been in our lives since 2020. And that's when it hit me. Sarah. That name. That was the crack in the wall. I scrolled through my phone and found Sarah's contact. I hadn't spoken to her in years, not since Raina said they drifted apart. But her number was still saved. I didn't plan to call. I was going to delete it. But something in me, something twisted and desperate, tapped the screen and hit call. To my surprise, she picked up. Her voice was groggy. It was late. "Hello, Sarah. It's Emery," I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. I know it's been a while. I just need to ask you something. Please." There was a long pause. Then she said quietly, "You found out, didn't you?" I froze. My throat closed. I didn't even have to ask the question. "I didn't want to be part of it," she continued. "That's why I stopped coming around. I didn't want to lie to you, but I knew she wouldn't forgive me if I said anything." I felt sick. "How long?" I asked. "Almost 6 months," she whispered. "It started small." She said it was just lunch. Then it turned into yoga. Then weekends. "I thought you knew Emery. You always looked so hollow when she wasn't around. I figured maybe you were just letting her do her thing." 6 months. That meant holidays, birthdays, our 10th anniversary. She was with him during our days. I thanked Sarah and hung up. I couldn't even speak. My entire body felt like it was made of static. 6 months. Half a year of lies. And not just between Raina and me, but between me and everyone. Her friends. Her sister. The people who smiled at me at barbecues and complimented our matching outfits while secretly watching my marriage rot in real time. It was like realizing you were the punchline to a joke you didn't know was being told. The next day, I went back to the house. Not to see her. To collect what was mine. I brought Lyle with me, mostly so I wouldn't break down or punch a wall. Raina wasn't home when we arrived. Her car was gone. I didn't ask where she was. I didn't want to know. I just walked through the front door, looked around at the photos still hanging on the walls, and felt like I was looting the ruins of a fake life. I went to the bedroom and packed what I needed, my books, clothes, laptop, the framed picture of my parents, and the watch my grandfather gave me when I got married. I didn't touch her things. I didn't leave a note. I didn't slam the door. But I did stop at one place on the way out, the bookshelf in the hallway. Behind the second shelf, taped to the wall, was a sealed envelope I'd hidden there on our 5th anniversary. A letter I wrote to her. A silly, romantic thing. A promise to always choose her, even when life got hard. I remember writing it in the kitchen while she slept on the couch, thinking it would be a sweet time capsule one day. I ripped it off the wall, tore it in half, then again, and again, until it was confetti. I left it scattered across the hardwood floor. She could keep the pictures, the couch, the blender, the house, but I wasn't leaving her the letter. That piece of me was coming with me. The thing about grief is that it doesn't hit you all at once. You'd think discovering your wife's been lying to your face for 6 months would level you immediately. That the pain would feel like a punch to the chest, fast and sharp. But no, it creeps. It spreads in silence. Like mold under wallpaper. Like fog in your lungs. And the worst part? You start to question every single detail of your life, every memory, every smile, until you can't tell if any of it was ever real. After I packed my things and moved back into Lyle's spare room, I tried to go back to work like nothing had happened. I'd sit at my desk, stare at spreadsheets, and pretend to care about numbers that didn't matter anymore. I told my coworkers I had the flu. I told myself I was okay. Neither was true. Every time I heard a female voice laugh down the hallway, my stomach tightened. Every time someone mentioned date night or brought up their anniversary, I felt like screaming. Then, one night, a mutual friend texted me, "Hey, just thought you should know. Bryce and Raina were at the Stonebridge Theater tonight, holding hands. Didn't look like they were hiding anything." That was a turning point, not because I was surprised, but because I realized she had finally stopped pretending. She wasn't embarrassed. She wasn't ashamed. She was free. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. Called her. Not out of weakness. Not because I missed her. I just wanted one final conversation. A moment of truth that would kill any last sliver of doubt that maybe, just maybe, I could have done something differently. She answered on the third ring. Her voice was quiet, almost cold. She asked how I was. I told her I wasn't calling to catch up. "Raina," I said, "just tell me the truth. All of it. No excuses. No soft language. I need to hear it from you." There was a pause. Then, to my complete shock, she said, "Okay." She told me they'd reconnected almost 8 months ago. Longer than Sarah thought. It started online. She commented on a post he made. He messaged back. It escalated. Fast. She said it felt effortless. Like breathing. Like something she hadn't realized she missed. She said I wasn't bad. Just predictable. Comfortable. Safe. "You were always steady, Emery," she said. "But I needed passion. And with you I felt stuck. Like I was watching life happen through a screen." I didn't speak. I didn't interrupt. I let her dig the knife deeper. She told me she'd been thinking about leaving for a while. That she just didn't know how. That the idea of hurting me made her feel guilty, so she waited. And waited. Until Bryce became real. Until he gave her what she claimed I couldn't. And then she said the part I'll never forget. "I think I always knew you weren't going to be the final chapter. You were the in-between. You were good to me, but you weren't my person." I was quiet for a long time. Then I asked her, "So what was I then?" Her voice was calm. Too calm. "You were the safe place I needed while I figured out who I really was." I wanted to laugh, to scream, to shatter the phone against the wall. But instead I thanked her. I genuinely did. Because finally, I had the truth. The ugliest, clearest version of it. She hadn't fallen into a mistake. She had used me. Used my loyalty. My kindness. My quiet reliability as a cushion while she searched for something more exciting. I was the placeholder husband. The emotional furniture. The good guy who made her coffee and carried her emotional weight while she fantasized about someone else. We ended the call without a goodbye. There was nothing left to say. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something that scared me more than sadness or rage. I felt nothing at all. After that call, I thought there was nothing else she could do to surprise me. I thought I had reached the bottom, that flat, hollow space beneath all the anger where nothing could touch me anymore. But I was wrong. There was still one more truth waiting, buried in the place I feared most. Our shared memories. Or more specifically, the digital ones. It started when I tried to log into our old home server to find a tax file I'd stored there years ago. Raina and I had set up a shared cloud account early in our marriage. Back when we were the kind of couple that believed in long-term organization and backing up our photos for the future. I hadn't touched the server in over a year, but the password still worked. Everything was exactly where we left it. Folders labeled vacations, receipts, dog training, and the one I almost didn't open, Voice notes. We used to send each other little audio clips back when our schedules didn't match. Mostly mundane stuff. Grocery reminders. Random thoughts. Sometimes a dumb joke or a sleepy, "I miss you." I clicked on the folder, expecting to feel nostalgia. Instead, I saw a file that hadn't been there before. Dated 2 months ago. Titled, "For Me Only." I knew I shouldn't open it. That it wasn't meant for me. But after everything, after the lies, the bar, the retreat, the "you were never my person" speech, I clicked anyway. The recording was only 2 minutes long. Her voice was soft, intimate, the way she used to talk to me in bed when the lights were off and the world felt far away. But she wasn't talking to me. She was talking to him, to Bryce. And not just talking, confessing. "I don't think Emery will ever leave," she said. "That's the thing. He's too loyal. Too pathetic, almost. He still looks at me like I'm his everything, even when I give him scraps. And I hate it. I hate how easy it is. How I can come home after being with you and he doesn't even question it. Sometimes I want him to scream, to throw something, to finally make me feel guilty. But he just accepts it. He folds into himself and makes excuses for me. I don't know if that makes me a bad person. I just know it makes him weak." I sat there frozen, eyes locked on the screen, my ears ringing with every word. She wasn't sorry. She never was. She didn't just betray me. She pitied me, mocked me, used me. I listened to the recording twice, then a third time. Not because I wanted to, because I needed to make sure I wasn't imagining it. That this woman, the one I had built a life around, really said those things. With that tone, that ease. I felt like I had been erased. Like I was just a placeholder in a story that was never mine. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood up, walked outside barefoot onto the sidewalk in front of Lyle's place, and stared at the night sky like it owed me an explanation. Everything felt fake. The air, the stars, the street lights. I kept waiting for someone to walk out and say, "Okay, joke's over. Let's go back to your real life." But no one came. The next morning, I forwarded the file to myself. I didn't tell Lyle about it. I didn't tell anyone. I just saved it in a folder called Proof. Not because I needed revenge, but because I needed to remember, to never let her rewrite the narrative again. To never let her cry her way back into painting herself as the wounded one. She broke something in me that day. And for the first time since this started, I began thinking about how to break something back. Not her car, not her career, her version of the truth. I never sent the recording to anyone. I didn't post it online. I didn't forward it to her family, or to Bryce's employer, or play it at some dramatic public confrontation like the fantasy versions that kept me awake some nights. I wanted to. For a while, I imagined all the ways I could destroy her reputation. Tear down the carefully curated image of the woman who always smiled at strangers and brought homemade cookies to work. But that would have made me no different than her. Someone who needed to humiliate others to feel strong again. Instead, I turned the focus inward. I booked therapy. I didn't tell anyone at first. Lal didn't even know. I'd go once a week to this tiny office above a bookstore, where a woman named Carla sat across from me and let me say the ugliest things I'd ever thought without judgment. I told her about the ring on the bar table, about Raina's eyes, about the voice message, about the quiet, crawling self-doubt that had lived in my chest long before the cheating ever happened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't feed me feel-good quotes. She just listened. And somehow, in that silence, I started to find myself again. I also started running. Not fast, not pretty, but every morning at 6 a.m. I drag myself out of bed, throw on shoes, and run until my lungs burned. It hurt. Everything hurt. But it was mine. Each step, each mile was one more inch between who I had been and who I was becoming. And Raina? She tried to reach out again. Once. A text, short and strange. "Can we talk as people who used to love each other?" I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't need to. I wasn't her placeholder anymore. I wasn't her audience. She had taken enough. And somewhere in all of that, the therapy, the solitude, the long runs, the awkward small talk with strangers at the grocery store. I realized something I never expected to feel again. Peace. Not the Hollywood version. Not the kind that comes with background music and forgiveness hugs. But the quiet, steady kind. The kind where you wake up and don't immediately feel like something is crushing your chest. I moved to a new apartment last week. It's small, but it's mine. I bought a plant I'm probably going to forget to water. I found a local trivia night at a bookstore bar, and I've started going on Wednesdays. I even met someone interesting, not in a romantic way. Not yet. Just someone who laughs at my lame jokes and doesn't make me feel like I'm constantly auditioning to be enough. And maybe that's the win. Maybe healing isn't dramatic. Maybe it's just choosing to get up again. To stop chasing closure from people who never plan to give it. To quietly build a life that feels like freedom. So yeah, she broke me, but I didn't stay broken. And in the end, I didn't need revenge. I needed me. Thanks for listening to this story on Reddit Confessions. If any part of this hit home, or if you've ever experienced a moment that made you question everything, share it in the comments. What moment from this story stuck with you the most? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, sometimes the best comeback is peace. See you in the next one.